My 70th birthday arrived quietly, the way old age does, without ceremony, without permission. The house was still, too still, as if it already knew something I didn't. Sunlight crept through the curtains and settled on the dining table where my late wife, Margaret, and I had shared decades of breakfasts, arguments, apologies, and laughter. Then I heard the wheels. A soft rolling sound crossed the hardwood floor. Slow, deliberate. "Happy birthday, Dad." My son Daniel's voice followed the suitcase into the living room. Cheerful on the surface, hollow underneath. I looked up from my chair and saw him standing there, one hand on the handle of a large navy blue suitcase. It was packed tight, bulging at the seams, as if it had swallowed more than clothes. For a moment, I thought it was a joke, a trip, maybe. Daniel used to surprise me when he was younger, fishing weekends, baseball games, road trips with terrible music and worse snacks. But this wasn't that. That suitcase didn't belong in my living room. I stared at it, then at him. "What's this?" He smiled, the kind of smile people use when they're trying to convince themselves more than anyone else. "We have a little surprise for you." The word surprise sat wrong in my chest. I stood slowly, joints protesting. "Daniel, today was supposed to be simple. Cake, coffee, maybe a walk. You'll still get all that," he said quickly. "Just somewhere better." Somewhere better. I had heard that phrase before, from doctors who stopped looking me in the eye, from neighbors who spoke to me slower than necessary, from people who had already decided my life was shrinking. "A better place than my home?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He just nudged the suitcase forward with his foot. That's when the fear arrived, quiet, precise, and cold. A few nights earlier, I had overheard Daniel and his wife, Claire, talking in the kitchen. They thought I was asleep. "We can't keep pretending," Claire had said. "The house alone is worth a fortune. And Dad won't even notice." Daniel replied, "He forgets things all the time." "I'm just saying," she continued, "we have our own lives. We can't rearrange everything for an old man." An old man. The words hadn't faded. They had settled, rooted. Now, as Daniel stood in front of me with that suitcase, the meaning snapped into focus. "Where are you taking me?" I asked. "Harborview," he said. "It's a senior living community. Very nice. Safe." Safe. I felt my heart pound against my ribs. "I don't want to go." Daniel's smile tightened. "Dad, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder for whom? I looked around the living room. The framed photos, the worn couch Margaret loved, the bookshelf I built with my own hands. This wasn't clutter. This was life. And someone had decided it was over. The kitchen had always known me. That might sound foolish to someone young, someone who thinks house is just wood and wiring. But people who have lived long enough understand. Spaces remember. They remember hands. They remember voices. They remember love long after the people themselves are gone. That morning, I stood barefoot on the cool tile floor, staring at the counter where Margaret used to sit and drink her tea. The chair was still pulled back slightly, as if she might return any moment, scolding me for letting the kettle boil too long. I reached for the flour slowly, not because my hands couldn't move, but because I didn't want them to. Daniel leaned against the doorway, his presence heavy. He hadn't taken his coat off. That detail lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. People who plan to stay take their coats off. "We really need to get going," "Dad," he said, checking his phone, "the appointment is timed." Appointment, such a neat word for something so final. "I'm baking," I replied. He sighed, the same sigh he used when he was 16 and thought he knew better than the world. "You don't have to do this. I always do this." I pulled out Margaret's recipe card. The edges were soft from decades of use. Her handwriting curved gently, confident and familiar. She had written "Don't rush" at the bottom, underlined twice. "I can do it for you later," Daniel said. "You'll still have birthdays." I looked up then, not here. He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means this kitchen matters," I said. "It means memory matters." He stepped into the room, irritation creeping into his voice. "You're holding onto things that are weighing you down." "No," I said evenly. "I'm holding onto things that made me." The pie crust came together beneath my fingers, muscle memory guiding me. Margaret used to say watching me bake was like watching someone pray. Quiet, focused, reverent. She would lean against the counter and talk about everything and nothing. Politics, neighbors, books she pretended she'd finish. "You're not thinking clearly," Daniel said. That was the moment something shifted inside me. "I am thinking clearly," I replied. "I just don't agree with you." He didn't like that. Disagreement implies equality. "You forget things," he said. "You repeat yourself." "I repeat stories because they mattered." He scoffed. "You live alone in a house that's too big. You leave lights on. You lose your keys." "And yet," I said softly, "I've never lost myself." The oven clicked on. Warmth filled the room. The scent of cherries followed soon after, and with it came Margaret's presence so vividly that my throat tightened. She had baked this same pie on my 50th birthday, even though her hands were already trembling back then. I had begged her to rest. She told me, if I stop doing the things I love, then what's the point of being alive? I wondered what Daniel thought the point was. "We're doing this for your own good," he said, his voice rehearsed now, polished. "For my good," I repeated. "Yes, you can't live like this forever." I turned and met his eyes. "You mean you don't want me to?" The silence that followed was answer enough. When the pie went into the oven, I rested my hands on the counter and breathed. The house hummed gently around me. Pipes, walls, familiar sounds. Daniel checked his watch again. "We're late." "I won't rush this," I said. He shook his head. "You're making it harder than it needs to be." Harder for him, easier for me had never entered the calculation. When the pie came out, golden and perfect, I smiled despite myself. Some things still obeyed me. Some things still listened. I wrapped it carefully. When it was time to leave, I walked through the house slowly. I touched the door frame of the bedroom, the bookshelf. The window overlooking the garden Margaret had loved more than anything. At the front door, I paused. Daniel waited behind me, impatient. I pressed my palm flat against the wood. It was warm from the sun. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not to Daniel, but to the house. When the door closed, something inside me closed with it. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that whatever waited for me next was not care. It was control. Room 214 did not belong to me. I knew that the moment I stepped inside. It smelled wrong, too clean, too sharp, like a place scrubbed of intention. The walls were pale and undecided, the kind of color chose, and so no one could object to it. A narrow bed sat against one wall, already made, already waiting, as if it had been expecting me for some time. Daniel set my suitcase near the dresser and straightened up. "See, It's nice. Nice was never a word, Margaret, and I use for places that mattered. I walked slowly around the room. The dresser drawers slid open easily, revealing nothing. No photographs, no books, no trace of a life lived. Just empty space prepared for compliance. "Where are my things?" I asked. Daniel shrugged. "We didn't want to overwhelm you. We'll bring some later." Later again. That word was doing a lot of work. I sat on the bed. It dipped too quickly beneath my weight, like it was eager to hold me down. Through the window, I could see the parking lot. Rows of identical cars, none of them mine. A woman passed in the hallway, her steps uneven. Somewhere down the corridor, a television laughed at a joke no one had told. Daniel cleared his throat. "You'll be safer here." "From what?" I asked. "From yourself." That stung more than I expected. After he left, I unpacked slowly. Shirts folded into drawers that didn't feel earned. Shoes lined up against a wall that didn't know where I had walked. I placed Margaret's watch on the bedside table and stared at it for a long time. That night, sleep refused me. The ceiling tiles formed unfamiliar patterns. Every sound was wrong. Too loud, too close, too constant. I felt observed, even alone. The next morning, I asked for my admission paperwork. The administrator, a man named Lawson, blinked as if the request surprised him. "Your son handled everything. I'd still like to see it." He hesitated, then nodded. When the folder arrived, my hand steadied. This was familiar territory. Paper told the truth if you knew how to read it. Then I saw the signature, my name, written by someone who didn't know me. The angle was off, the pressure wrong. It looked like my name wearing a disguise. "This isn't mine," I said. Lawson's face drained. "I'm sure it's valid." "No," I replied. "I'm sure it's not." When Daniel arrived later, his patience was already gone. "You're causing problems," he snapped. "I'm asking questions. You don't understand how things work anymore." I met his gaze. "I understand exactly how this works." For the first time since we arrived, he didn't answer. And in that silence, I realized something chilling. This wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. The detective introduced herself as Maria Chen. She didn't rush me. That alone felt like a kindness. She sat across from me in a small office that smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. A notepad resting on her knee, her attention fully present. "Mr. Whittaker," she said, "I need you to tell me what you believe happened." I appreciated the wording. Believe, not claim, not imagine. I took a breath. My son decided my life was inconvenient. Her pen paused, just briefly. I told her about the conversations I overheard. About the house, about the forged signature. I told her about Margaret and how we had built everything together, brick by brick, decision by decision. I told her I was not confused, not lost, not incapable. I was unwanted. When Daniel arrived, his anger filled the room before he did. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're humoring him." Detective Chen raised a hand. "Sir, please sit." He didn't want to. He did anyway. "You think you're protecting him," she said calmly. "But protection doesn't involve forgery." Daniel scoffed. "You don't know what it's like taking care of someone like him." I leaned forward. "You're not taking care of me. You're taking from me." The room went quiet. Later that week, the board at Harborview requested a meeting. Their conference room was polished and impersonal, all glass and distance. They spoke in careful phrases: oversight, miscommunication, regret. I let them finish. You trusted convenience over consent, I said, and people like me pay for that. They shifted in their seats. This facility exists for care. I continued. Care requires listening. One of them cleared his throat. What are you asking for, Mr. Whitaker? I didn't hesitate. Change. Transparency. Independent evaluations. Resident approval. Accountability. I wasn't angry anymore. I was precise, and for the first time since my birthday, I felt something return to me, something I hadn't realized I'd lost. My voice. 1 year later, I baked the pie again. The kitchen was warm, filled with afternoon light and the familiar scent of cherries and sugar. The same counter, the same oven. Even the same small crack in the tile near the sink. The one Margaret always meant to fix and never did. I moved more slowly now, but with intention. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing needed to be. The doorbell rang just as I was wiping my hands on a towel. Happy birthday, Grandpa. Leo barreled into me with the kind of enthusiasm only children have. The kind that reminds you your body still has a purpose beyond endurance. He smelled like sunshine and grass and impatience. We sat at the table together, steam rising from the pie between us. He asked questions about the foundation, about the people at Harborview, about why some places feel heavy and others don't. Because people are listened to here. I told him. That makes all the difference. Later, we visited Harborview. It no longer felt like a waiting room for endings. Paintings lined the halls now. Laughter traveled freely. Residents argued over chess moves and teased one another over card games. Gardens bloomed where there had once been nothing but trimmed hedges and silence. An older woman waved at me from across the room. "James, you're late." I smiled. I always do. Leo joined a chess game without hesitation, pulling up a chair as if he belonged. Which, in a way, he did. I stood back and watched, not as someone reclaiming something, but as someone preserving it. As the sun dipped low, we sat together on a bench outside. The air was soft, familiar. "I miss Grandma," Leo said quietly. "So do I replied. But for the first time, the missing didn't feel like absence. It felt like continuation. I had lost a son to greed. That pain still lived somewhere inside me, quiet but real. Yet what remained was stronger. I kept my name. I kept my memories. I kept my right to choose. And in the end, that was enough.